we've talked about this. All 4 teams have the chance to make the playoffs. It's never happened. But when you have every other team and the fan bases are getting energized because they are competitive, because they are a team that is going to be a postseason team, I don't think there's any other way to look at it than, it's putting pressure on Steve Yzerman. It's putting pressure on the Red Wings franchise to be a postseason team.
You can't be the one left behind here.
The one that just keeps getting close but never getting it done?
You had 6 years. So for anybody that goes, it's different in the NBA and the NFL, fine, it's being accounted for. You have a 6-year runway in the case of Steve Yzerman. Trajan Langdon inherited the worst situation in Pistons franchise history and in 1 year flipped it. Now, it's easier to do in basketball because you draft guys that play right away and free agents you can plug in right away. You have deeper hockey teams. But I think that's factored in when you say you had 6 seasons, Steve. You can't be passed by the Pistons and Tigers, who are in much worse positions 18, 24 months ago.
So Trajan Langdon inherited a superstar. And a lot of people didn't think that before this year. Steve Yzerman, when he took over, did not inherit a superstar.
How long is that going to be an excuse?
Well, I'm not saying it's an excuse at all. Don't put words in my mouth, please. But look, it's going to take a lot longer.
Great.
When you don't have a star in hockey.
Great.
We've said that from day one.
I know, so you get an extra 5 years. Still not doing it.
You had to cleanse,
you know what I mean?
Cleanse your boy Ken Holland's mess for 2 years. You like that one. Look, the bottom line is we're just getting to the end game here. And I will say I will give him next year no matter what. I don't think if they miss the playoffs that he should be fired. I do think after the next year, it's bust next year. Because I think they had – you have to have patience in hockey. Ken Holland's words were true about the 10 years potentially of flipping this thing. If you look at it, it has taken teams that long. You look at the Avs and some of the things they went through. Heck, they had to move on from Duchesne. What do you want, Jim? Do you want them gone after this year if they don't make the playoffs?
No, I don't like this idea that the 10 years gets propped up. It's not 10 years to make the playoffs.
Right, I know.
You know what I'm saying? Like when everybody throws the 10-year thing out, it's not 10 years to make the playoffs. The Wings are in 9 years of a playoff drought.
But you saw when...
You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so we've talked here about these 3 teams flipping, the Lions, the Pistons, and the Tigers. The Lions flipped fast. It went from awful to good to very good, like fast, within 2 years.
Well, I think it's
the
faster
Tigers,
in the
all
NFL.
of a sudden, it just went boom. And I expect, that's why I said what I said about next year. I'm not talking, hey, wild card. No, it's time to pass Tampa in your division. Am I telling you to go past Florida and Toronto? I don't know yet. Probably not Florida. Maybe Toronto, depending on what happens in the offseason. But these teams are putting pressure on him. I mean, it's becoming indefensible. It's very Jim Harbaugh-ish after COVID. Seriously, right?
And he got one more shot, and it worked. Which, again, I'm not telling you Yzerman should be fired if they miss the playoffs. What I'm saying is, if the Pistons can do it, and the Tigers can do it, and the Lions can do it, and you've had more time than all of them, so that addresses that it takes longer in hockey.
To be fair,
you are on the hot seat.
To be fair, before last night, they had 36 points in 2 months exactly.
Yep.
So let's not get crazy about last night a little bit and let that affect where our heads are at, because you could argue they've flipped it and we're just got to get to the end here. We're all of a sudden, maybe they're flirting with third in the division when the standings go final at the end of the year.
I still expect them to make the playoffs, so this will largely not be a conversation. But the if is there because they're hanging on by a thread right now. And they have time to add at the deadline, but we don't know that they will.
Let me ask you this. Do you have more confidence of them making a playoff simply because what's beneath them in the East?
Partially.
Yeah, and that's why this seems like a little fool's gold. The Rangers have significantly underachieved this year, and it looks like Boston's finally falling apart.
I think you got to be careful they'll get in by default. Someone has to win their way in. We saw this last year. Mm-hmm. You have to win your way in, even with a low threshold. Last year was like 91 points, and they lost on a tiebreaker. You have to win some of those games. And when the Capitals beat Detroit head-to-head in the final stretch run, the Capitals won their way in. Someone from the group of underachievers. Boston's lost 5 in a row. Ottawa's lost 5 in a row. The Rangers have underachieved. Someone is going to go on a run, and you have to go on one as well.
But are you good and getting better, Or are you just the best of the rest? Like
Right.
the Denver Broncos this year getting in the playoffs.
Right. Well, I think right now they're the best of the rest. But you could be on the verge of being good. And that's the question that's going to somewhat be answered in the next 7 days. If you're on the verge of just being good, how do you add to this roster so that you can be better than you are, better than just the best of the rest? And how does that carry over to next year? Because it's not just an eye on being a playoff team this year. Nobody wants to be that team that just, because you're the best of the rest, you get in and you get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah.
You want to be able to actually get there and win a playoff series, or at least have the threat of winning a series. But how does it carry over to next year? Are they able to spend in free agency? Who do they re-sign? Who do they trade for? All of those different things. But right now, the question is, who are they going to add so that if Dylan Larkin has a game like that somebody else can step up and fill that void?